something not truth. I can read, I just can't speak. I'll try this again. I say that all the time in class to my kids. Trust, it's one of those T words. A word we hear a lot these days. I'm sure you've heard, trust me, it's easy. I usually hear that when somebody gives me directions, which is why I have Google Maps, because there's no way I can follow any directions you give me. Or I'm sure you've heard the phrase, experience you can trust. I always hope that's true when I drop my car off. If you are my age or older, I bet you remember this one. You can trust your car to the man that wears the star. You remember that one? That's old, isn't it? If you listen to TV, you get to hear the most trusted name in news. That one I don't believe at all. Our legend, God we trust. And then, those of you with children probably remember this even if you have grandchildren. They always say, Mom, you can trust me, which usually means you're going to be visiting the emergency room or somebody else's door to apologize for something. I went on the internet and looked up quotes about trust and found, well, thousands. I will not read them all to you. Here are just a few I thought were very interesting. William Shakespeare said, don't trust the person who has broken faith once. Stephen Covey said, trust is the glue of life. Ernest Hemingway said, the best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. And Corrie ten Boom, if you don't know who she is, she survived the Nazi concentration camps. She was imprisoned because of her helping the Jewish people. And she said, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. I thought that was pretty amazing. And of course, then I decided to look up the word trust in the dictionary. Now, mind you, this is the teacher in me coming out. We are talking about trust as a verb, not a noun. Okay? So just to make sure, it is an action word. And I won't make you spell it for me, but that's okay. Merriam-Webster defines trust as assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. Oxford Dictionary says it is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. And then, of course, dictionary.com, which I use a lot, says trust, assurance, confidence imply a feeling of security. Trust implies instinctive, unquestioning belief in and reliance upon something, or, in our case, someone. Years ago, back when we were first married, which has been several years now, Bob and I decided that we wanted to live our lives by the verses in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. And I'm sure many of you know these. It goes like this: trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him or submit to him, which is NIV, and he will make your paths straight, or he will direct your paths, is an alternate translation. I'm sure many of you have heard those, so I thought I'd be clever today and do the teacher thing and make an acronym. So, for the word trust, T-R-U-S-T, I have total reliance upon solid truth. I thought that was very clever. It took me a while to think of that one. I'm only in fourth grade. So, first of all, T for total. Absolute, complete. God expects us to trust him. If you read through Scripture, you find numerous examples of God's faithfulness despite the faithlessness and the failures of his people. If you're looking for heroes in the Bible, you find a few. You want to see failures, you've got lots of examples. It makes me feel so much better when I start reading through the Bible. I don't feel nearly so bad. I have lots of company. Trust makes me think of total trust makes me think of our middle son, our middle child, Joshua. When he was a toddler, Bob used to throw him in the air and catch him. I'm sure lots of you dads especially probably did that. I mean, I even did it a little bit, but I did it just a few inches. Bob, however, thought that it would be a little bit more exciting if he just threw him up in the air. And we actually have a photo of this. It doesn't show me having a panic attack, but it does show this child way up in the air and Bob just going like this. And Joshua is just laughing and screaming with delight. I mean, he's ecstatic. Never occurred to him that perhaps something bad could happen. Of course, I thought of all those things. I was the one who was having a little difficulty putting the trust in God. But Joshua it was utter abandonment. He knew he was going to get caught, and he just loved the thrill of just flying through the air. Despite the fact I was having heart palpitations. But that utter abandonment, that ability to just completely rely is just amazing to me to think of. And at the time, I don't think I correlated with trusting God, but as I look at that picture again, I think, that's what God expects. That's what he wants from us. We shouldn't be going, oh God, I'm not sure if I can trust you here. Let me try a little bit. He just expects us to, boom, just trust him because, of all the faithful things that are around, how can you get any better than God? Next is reliance, to depend on something. Not just a backup plan in case plan A doesn't work out, but putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. I have a poster in my classroom that says, for all those children who freak out every time something doesn't go right and they have to change their paper, I have a poster that says, if plan A doesn't work out, there are already, there are 25 more letters in the alphabet. So it's good for my kids because obviously when you're in 4th grade you make mistakes. When you're adults you make mistakes, but God doesn't. We don't need plans B through Z with God because his plan A works. He's got it. Now I'd love to stand here and give you all the examples in my life of all the times I've relied on God because that would be just wonderful, but then I'd have to go home and confess that I was lying. So I won't do that. Sometimes I've actually had a fairly easy time trusting God, but then the rest of those times in my life have really been a struggle. I can't count the times I've been in my classroom after, in 25 years of teaching, I can promise you it's been lots of times. I have struggled and sat there in my chair or stood there in the classroom moaning and groaning to God about how I just don't know how I'm going to do this, or how am I going to get all this done, or my lesson is such a failure, or how am I ever going to get these kids to pass this test, or what about this parent who's all over my case because, Junior has a D, because Junior won't do anything, what am I supposed to do? And I moan and I groan, and for some reason, there's a reason I'm only in 4th grade, I haven't learned how to just say, God, it's yours. I completely trust you to deal with it because obviously I can't. And that's okay since you made me anyway, you got it figured out. But for some reason, I don't seem to get that. I realized a little bit more how poorly I do at trusting God when my daughter came home one time from college. Now she went through college kind of on the extended plan, and so for the last few years of college, she was definitely a few years older than some of her roommates. And so she had already gone through many of the things they had already dealt with, and so she was kind of the mom of her dorm or of her apartment. And she told me one time this young lady roommate came in and was moaning and groaning about some situation she was in, some relationship, and it wasn't working out, or something was wrong, or whatever. Anyway, she was looking for a sympathetic shoulder. She obviously picked the wrong person because my daughter is one of those just do it type of people. And so she wasn't going to say, oh, it's okay, honey. She just told the girl, well, just leave, just do what you need to do. And as I thought of that later, I thought, isn't that kind of obvious? The Nike just do it? Doesn't mean, for us as Christians, doesn't mean just do it yourself, because I can tell you, that hasn't worked very well. But it means just ask God, for pity's sakes. He's right there, and he's probably standing there saying, are you serious? Will you please get around to just asking me? I know how it works. I made you. I've got this. Just ask him. Total reliance upon. When I think of the word total reliance upon, I think of God's hand just out there and just all of me just like right in the palm of his hand. Isaiah 41:10 says, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And the right hand is always the hand of power in the Bible. And so God's righteous right hand, it shows his power, his ability, his strength, his stability to be able to hold us no matter what it is. We have a cat, okay? No surprise if you know me. We used to have lots of animals. Right now we're down to one cat and a dog, but we have this cat. He's fairly elderly, but when we got him 13 years ago, he would fit in my hand. He was this mangy-looking, disgusting, filthy creature. And I adopted him, and he's a rather interesting personality, but he and I kind of have this relationship. He comes when I call, and of course I don't know about you if you have animals, but when we talk to them, but I never talk to my kids like this, but I talk to my cat, oh, come on, Stevie, it's okay, come on. So I talk to him like this, and of course he looks at me like all cats do, like I couldn't care less unless you have food, but maybe I'll come if I feel like it. But one time it was so interesting. He's not a climber. Of all things he does a lot of things. He doesn't climb particularly. So he's not, was never going to climb in a tree, except for one day several years ago. He was stuck in a tree. I don't know what possessed his poor little cat brain to climb a tree, but for some reason he decided it was a good idea. And so I remember being out in the backyard with Bob, and I think there's somebody else there, and we're debating what to do with the cat in the tree. All I could think of is the cartoon scenario of calling the fire department and asking them to come get your cat out of the tree. And I thought that probably wasn't a very good idea since this was the parsonage and the church is right next door. I figured we didn't need a bad reputation from the emergency department, so I didn't do that. But I'm looking at this cat thinking, okay, really? How do you get a cat out of a tree? How do you get a cat out of anywhere it doesn't want to come? If you've had a cat and you try to pull it, I don't know if you've ever experienced that phenomenon, but there is no such thing as pulling a cat out of someplace it doesn't want to be, especially when it has all 4 sets of claws. It's not going anywhere. I can take it to the vet, and he'll be in his cat cage, and if I need to pull him out to have it examined, I would need a tractor to pull him out. I have to disassemble the little cage, because pulling him out doesn't happen. He just braces up, and he's not going anywhere. I stood there and I thought, okay, well, can't hurt to try. So I just reached up and I talked to him. And amazingly enough, the strangest thing happened. He actually reached, it sounds really weird, he actually put his paws towards me so that I could actually put my hands on him. And he allowed me to just take him right out of that tree. He just leaned forward and put his paws on my shoulder and I picked him up. I've never had an animal do that before in my life, especially this one. But we had a relationship going that he knew that he could trust me. Now, I'm not sure he should have been that smart, but this time it worked. One other time he got stuck in the sanctuary. Okay, our church there was a driveway between the parsonage and the church. The cat used to go out, wander around. Well, somebody had left the door to the church open. And that night, couldn't find the cat. The next day, we still couldn't find the cat. It was probably almost a day and a half later, and Bob came over and said, I think the cat's in the church, but we can't find it. He said, you need to come over and call for it. And evidently they'd been calling all over the church and looking all through the sanctuary, and there was really no sound. But for some reason they had heard something before, but the cat wasn't showing up. And I went to the sanctuary, and all I did was call his name a couple of times, and boom, he came out. There was a relationship that we had. And he trusted me. It was just amazing. And not that I expect you to try to train your cat to answer you, because he certainly doesn't usually answer me, but it's an example of how God is. When we hear his voice, we know it's him, and we can rely on him because we know he is reliable. Solid. Total reliance upon solid. What can be more solid than God, the creator of everything? When you think of things solid, you tend to think of, at least I do, I tend to think of rocks. Rocks seem to be a phenomenon that is very common when you have children, especially boys. I remember finding it so enlightening when Bob informed me years ago that he and his brothers used to have rock fights. I never quite understood that. I don't, as a girl, quite get the whole idea of how it's fun to throw rocks at each other because they are hard. They don't tend to break. Your head might break, body may break, but the rock doesn't break. My son knows this. The same one my husband used to throw in the air, that same one decided to take a rock one Sunday morning as I came out of Sunday school and decided to round up my children. I literally am walking out of church and I see his arm going, and there's a rock flying. I thought, oh, you're going to hit our car. No, he didn't hit our car. He hit the car behind our car, who I didn't know, but I knew it belonged to somebody in the church. And I had to go in and try to find Bob, who was in the choir. So I'm crawling up the back, crawling up the back of the stairs, and Bob, Josh just broke somebody's windshield. I mean, it hit the windshield perfectly, the sunburst, just gorgeous. Couldn't have made a better crack in that window. It was just a myriad of cracks. I was mortified. But I promise you, it was the windshield that broke, not the rock. And that's like God. God doesn't break. God is our solid rock. David loved to use the analogy of a rock in Psalms. In Psalm 18:31 it says, "For who is God besides the Lord, and who is the rock except our God?" In 2 Samuel 22, David sings, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge." In Isaiah chapter 26, verse 4, he says, "Trust in the Lord forever, for in God the Lord we have an everlasting rock." Relying on the solidity of God reminds me of Jesus' story of the wise man and the foolish man. Remember the song, "What's the difference?" So much for my singing. That's why Bob sings, not me. If you ever go to the beach and you want to go jogging, which I don't, but I have seen people do it. I know how it's done. I just choose not to participate. But I have heard that running on wet sand is better because running on dry sand, your feet just sink. But running on wet sand is pretty hard, but not as hard as pavement. But I do know that if you stand there, I'm good at standing. I do know if you stand there and let the water come up, that suddenly you feel like it's just like the sand is just slithering out from underneath your feet. It's a really cool feeling. I remember my kids when they were little just standing there letting the sand just wash out from underneath their feet. But if you're wanting to stand on a solid surface, it is not a good place to be because suddenly you're on uneven ground. And I think so much of in our culture, I see people relying on things that they think are rock solid. And yet it's like that sand just kind of slithers out from underneath their feet. And pretty soon they find that they're very unstable and they're sinking. Because as the water comes in, the sand keeps washing out. Pretty soon you're in this big, it starts to make like a dip or a hole. It's kind of like when I used to play with my preschoolers. I used to teach preschool 4-year-olds, which are an interesting creature to begin with. And I would make a mixture of cornstarch and water. And it was fun because it can act like a liquid and a solid, which I wasn't about to try to explain because I'm no scientist. And at 4 years old, it wouldn't have made any difference. They didn't understand it anyway, but it was fun. And so you mix it, and then you leave it in this bowl, and if they pushed on it, they would feel the cornstarch would be hard. But if you keep putting pressure on that cornstarch, your finger starts to sink into it. Just slowly. Just keep the pressure on, and it's like your finger feels like it's melting into it. And then if you try to pull your finger straight out, it acts like solid again, and it kind of holds onto your finger. You have to pull it out slowly. It's an interesting feeling, but I think that's what so many times I see people, parents that come into my classroom, and I understand why their children are a mess, because they're a mess. And I get it, because honestly, I can't imagine going through life without having a solid rock to depend on. I mean, if you're standing on sand and you're trying to build a life on something that is unstable, your life is going to be unstable. And so I feel for these parents, but I think, you need what I have. And I'm not allowed to talk to you about in school, but I can promise you really do. I mean, what more solid thing is there than God? And finally, truth. Truth. What is truth? Well, I promise I won't give you a huge long lecture on it because I'm not about to. But I can tell you that if you're in politics, it's probably how your party votes. If you're talking about religion, it's probably who your deity is. If it's in a war, it's probably whoever the winner